Last Tuesday was July 4th, Independence Day, with all things that implies. And I woke up in the morning with a sense of celebration in a way, a sense of loving that it was a holiday, looking forward to hopefully being with my family, having a barbecue, all of the accoutrements of a holiday, and then it all fell apart. My son Josh decided to go to the state fair, or the county fair, with his family, and in a sense Blanche and I were invited, but I really felt that this was for them, not for us, that they needed to be together as a family, not with grandparents hanging on. And so I said, no, you guys go. And then we would have a barbecue later in the day. And so Blanche and I were going to go for a long walk. And at some point, I forget exactly how it worked out, but she felt she ran out of time. She had to go shopping at the supermarket and get stuff. And I just felt, something I've been talking about a lot recently, a kind of overwhelming aloneness. And I know this has become a theme, but it may be the theme in our lives. Because when there's nothing on the agenda and you feel your own situation of being not lonely, but profoundly you. And just having to deal with that. And there's always a feeling, for me, that it's not enough. That I don't really love my own company. That I don't want to walk around having to think about what was or what could be. None of that attracts me at all, and yet that's the first thing that comes up is, oh God, it's just you. And I know through decades and decades of meditation that is not really how it works, that there is a deeper and more profound self. But whenever I feel left alone, I don't immediately just sit down and go, I can just be alone by myself. I mean, occasionally, but mostly I just feel abandoned. And really, here we go again, just me. And so what I do nowadays is, most of you know, is I go for a walk. And the first part of the walk is usually a bit of a drudge. Just walking, and mind is kind of thinking, and usually it's a process, and the process is let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. And I keep feeling more and more of the discomforts of daily life just sort of falling away. And I take a big walk often up into this eucalyptus forest, and there's a big bench that kind of marks the end of the walk. And by the time I got to the bench, I had kind of really said, okay, be alone, be alone. And I sat down on the bench, and I looked out over this beautiful valley that we have surrounding us, and I just sat there, and I just felt more and more that the self, not myself, the self, was just pouring through. And I said, this is what you've got. Whatever this is what you've got. And I made peace, and I felt this kind of arrival at a certain place that I can always go to, which is this borderline between ego mind and universal mind. and they were just in harmony. And I just sat there and just took a deep breath and felt wonderful. And at that moment, my phone rang. And it was my son Ari, out of the blue. And he just called to say Happy Independence Day. And we started talking, and it was so beautiful. And I felt, wow, out of this enormous emptiness, this sudden fullness. I could not have predicted it, I didn't plan it, I didn't make it happen. It just arrived. It arose. And I felt so fulfilled in just talking to Ari. So much love, so much simplicity, so much depth of connection. And when we hung up, I was just like, wow. Life happens. It comes. And then I began my walk back to the house. And I decided, well, you know, it's July 4th. I want to listen to some music. And I have this, stuff on my iPhone, and I pulled up, and I don't listen to music often. I usually walk in silence, but I just felt like I have the score from the TV show, the Ken Burns show, Civil War, so I just put it on. And the next thing I hear are, when Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. And I'm listening to this song and getting filled with emotion. And then there's a song called Shenandoah, I long to see you. It's this, I don't know why that song, no song in the world touches me as deeply as that song. And I just started breaking down, and I started feeling this sadness and beauty, of such exquisite beauty. And then the song that followed that was the theme song that they had in the show for the Civil War, and it's all about this guy writing letters to his wife and how much he loves her, and he may never see her again, but he's fighting for something worth fighting for, and it's a beautiful battle, and we have to do in life what we're called upon to do. And again, I'm just getting more and more like overwhelmed by the glory of this experience of being in touch with the universe. And then mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. And I just lost it. I was just like completely given everything. Everything. It just poured in. I didn't do it. It happened. It told me to put on the music, and I listened. That's what I did. I put on the music, and I just felt this glorious, glorious sense of what it means to be alive, what it means to be here, this idea of the freedom that we have in this world, in our particular immediate world, that we have this very dynamic universe that we're in that has so many dramas and conflicts and difficulties, but in this moment there was a kind of celebration of being. And I got home, and Josh is in the kitchen, the kids are in the pool. Josh is making this amazing dinner that he's preparing for us. I mean, perfect, amazing meal. The kids are wonderful. They're so joyful. And then Talia went home. Talia stayed with us. Elijah went home with his mother. Talia and Josh and Blanche and I went to the fair to watch fireworks. And again, I don't mean to be specific about everything, but it was the best time at the fair. There was a pavilion, an art pavilion, that Blanche and I wandered off to while Josh and Talia went on rides. And it just, everything spoke to me, everything. Everybody's effort to try to find the beauty in the world, and how many people succeeded and how many people struggled to succeed, but the struggle was as important as the achievement. And you just was surrounded by everybody, little kids and adults, all making art. And then we gathered for the fireworks, and Talia arrived carrying something she had won at the fair. Dora the Explorer, I don't know, whoever Dora the Explorer is. She had a grin on her face that she had climbed this ladder up to the top and rung a bell. It was a ladder that spins over and makes it almost impossible to get there, but she had done it. Got all the way to the top, and she won this, and she was gloriously happy. And then the fireworks happened, and they were amazing. And then we went on walk through the crowds of people. I mean, everything worked beautifully. And I got home that night, and I went, yes, yes. This is the life that happens. This is the life that can happen. I did not have to do anything. All I had to do was go for my walk and make peace with my aloneness. Go for my walk and sit in my little bench, which I love to sit in, and just bask in the simplicity and the unknowing reality of being. And I did that, and life said, here, here. And what I've realized, trust me on this, it does that every day. Every day. It's not always as big and explosive, and it doesn't always end with fireworks, but it delivers itself. It delivers itself over and over and over in ways that completely satisfy, in ways that make you feel grateful to be here, whole. It's an exquisite arising of stuff. Does it always bring you what you quote unquote want? Clearly no. Clearly no. It often brings you stuff you don't want. Stuff that you can't digest. Stuff that is bigger than you can handle. Stuff that is painful. Stuff that is not what you would design for yourself on a daily basis. But there it is. Stuff arises that is not fireworks, that is not celebratory. It is hard. It delivers what needs to be delivered. There are two ways to deal with that. One is to shut down, stop trusting life, stop believing in it, saying, well, you delivered yesterday, but you're not delivering today. Why was it so perfect yesterday and now it's terrible? Which always reminds me of the Jews after getting out of Egypt and marching through the wilderness for 40 years and suddenly not believing in God anymore, and the golden calf. They start worshiping idols again, and it's like, what? You've had a Red Sea part. You've left bondage. Everything is given to you, and now God hasn't shown up for a day, and you're why? Where is? There's no God. That's how we live. It's really how we live. It's like we don't get it for a minute, and we completely betray everything we've ever believed in because we feel abandoned. There is no abandonment. There is no abandonment. It's we, in a sense, who abandon. And we don't really abandon, we just get lazy. We don't do the work. What is the work? The work is go for a walk. Go for a walk. Sit still on a bench and be quiet. Let this thing that announces itself make itself known again. Make itself present. You have to bring yourself to the table or to the bench or to whatever it is. You bring yourself there and it arrives. If you're sitting there like this, it doesn't show up. It may show up, but you're not going to recognize it because you haven't brought yourself to the table. And I totally get it. You may feel completely justified in saying, look, you have really given me such a horribly difficult, terrible experience here. Things are not going the way I want them. They're not making me happy. I'm shutting down. Yeah, great. Who's the winner in that? Who wins in that situation? Well, you don't. You don't. You don't win because you have decided that the universe, instead of being beneficent and loving and attentive and caring, is somehow the opposite. It doesn't vacillate like that. It just doesn't. The universe is loving and caring and available in the most profound ways if you show up. And your whole duty and obligation as a human being is to get there. Arrive there. And that's it. What does that mean? Well, to some people it means sit down and meditate. For some people, go for a walk. Some people go to the gym. It's doing the thing you need to do that puts you in gear, puts you in motion, so that all of these amazing forces can be recognized. Because they are always at work. Even in the worst of the worst, it's at work. Now, most of us don't deal with the worst daily. Most of us have a fairly benign existence, and every so often the worst can occur. When the worst can occur, it involves a different muscle system. It involves a discipline of effort and reach and demand and request and prayer and all of these forces that come into play that allow you to break through all of your egoistic personal betrayal and find your way back to something that will take you in. How to do that? Well, if you only try to do this once in a while, you may or may not have the muscle system required. You know, there's always the story of somebody trapped under a car and a little old lady lifting the car up to get the person out. I mean, that the muscle system comes into play because the demand of the situation is so extraordinary that something supernatural almost occurs. And for a lot of us, given a terrible event, something supernatural can occur that gives us the strength. But incremental strength built up over time, over a period of time, gives us a sense of capacity that we might not have otherwise. And that incremental strength comes from every day going for the walk, sitting still, reaching inside, opening to the possibilities of the day, and then watching what happens and what's delivered. And it's amazing what you start to see. It's amazing what you see. Nobody can do it by themselves. Nobody can do this by themselves. The reason the core of this class is an asking for help is because help is essential. Help is essential. We say help to surrender, which means get out of my own way. Help to let go of my own suffering, my own predisposition to suffer, my own predisposition to be angry or to be hostile or to be aggrieved or to be doubting or to be whatever it is we tend to fall into. To let go of that, to help me, please be free of that. That is really an essential part of the evolving of a inner being. To let go of the stuff that's trapping you in your suffering and just let it go a little bit at a time, a little bit, you know, and then you get open. And then you're available to help. And the help comes. Sitting on that bench on July 4th, it wasn't help. It was joy. It was celebration. It was yes. It was we're here for you. The universe cares. We're delivering as best we can. I mean, it's a kind of a surfeit of possibility and of expression, of availability. It's so exquisite, and it's there for us. It's there for us, for all of us. And most of us see things in black and white. We see them, this is good, this is bad, this is for me, this isn't for me. It's a very difficult kind of way to live. And then slowly you begin to get a sense of the coloration of life, the gradations of life, the grays, and then the mild little blues, and the little pinks, and then the reds, and then the fuchsias, and then the purples, and it gets brighter and brighter. And then, and this is just starting to happen for me, and it's like kind of overwhelming, I'm starting to see colors that are not part of the spectrum. I'm starting to look at people's faces and at walls and at flowers, and more colors than we know about are starting to appear. It is so unbelievably beautiful that the coloration of life is beyond the spectrum we know. And you start to feel larger and larger abilities to witness a universe you didn't even know was there. It's around you all the time. And you get to feel things you've never felt before. Today's class, by the way, for whatever reason, I can't speak to exactly your experience, but it was as beautiful and deep as I've ever known it to be. It was so exquisitely attuned to each of you. It was so in love with who you are. It was like I was the outer force that came to me on July 4th operating for you. It loved you. I'll put it in the present tense. It loves you. Loves you. You can't even begin to understand how deeply it loves you. And I got to experience that. It used me as a channel to love you. And I got to feel what that means. And I mean every one of you deeply. This is what we're given every day. And we don't know it. We don't know it because we don't go for the walk, we don't sit still, we don't do the thing that stops us in our tracks and goes, oh, that's so beautiful. Wow. That's the great thing about starting to take photographs, because it stops me. It goes, I go, oh. Who would have known that was there if you hadn't popped out and I just stopped to really spend time with it? This is what a spiritual life is like. It's a life that stops you in your tracks and tells you this is an exquisite, beautiful reality that you have found yourself in. Yes, it has darkness, and yes, it has difficulties, and yes, we mess up all the time, and yes, we live complicated and not very poetic lives often, but that's all part of it. You know, this guy Jeff Foster, who I love so much, he just constantly talks about living the sloppy life, living the life you got, living it and realizing what it is, not trying to make it perfect, just appreciating that this is how life is. It's what it is. You know, we don't have a dress rehearsal for this. You make mistakes. Things don't go well. But that's part of it. That's part of it. It's got crevices and deep nooks and strange alleyways and all of these things that go on, but it's all part of life. And as long as you're here, open to it. And if you open to it while you're here, I assume you'll be open to it when you're not here, when you leave. I saw a film the other night about the Dalai Lama. And I haven't really seen the Dalai Lama. I saw him once since I met him 50 years ago. And I loved him the minute I met him. And I loved his sense of compassion and openness and his availability to the what is of life. Very, very established. And you know, he offered to be my teacher, and I said, I don't think you're my teacher. And I asked if he would accept me later if I don't find a teacher, and he said yes very graciously. And I went on to find a teacher and find teachings and learn a great deal. And so watching this movie was like seeing him again. I think I've told you, I did see him once in between at a party that Richard Gere had, and Richard reintroduced me, and I remind him that I had gone to see him when I was 22 years old. And he said, oh, you must have had more hair. And he clearly had no recollection of having ever met me, which I totally understand. But in this movie, they had an interview with a man who had in Tibet been tortured by the Chinese and put in jail for 20 more years, and horrible, horrible story. And this man struggled and struggled and struggled to maintain compassion. To maintain compassion. And he was so complicated in his mind. He was an old man now, and you could feel the troubles, you could feel the difficulty. What he had been through was so horrible. And he was beginning to fear that he had lost his ability to be compassionate. He had tried to not hate his jailers and hate his torturers. He tried to be loving to them, and he was feeling that they had broken him, that he had lost maybe the ability to finally love them. And I looked at him with such pain and troubledness, because I felt he shouldn't be that troubled. And then I listened to more of the Dalai Lama talking in his teachings about how we must be compassionate, how we must make the effort to stay open and love the people who hate us and all of that stuff. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. That's asking a lot of people. That is asking a lot. Yet I'm not even sure it's fair, and I'm not even sure it's possible. I don't think the ego-minded self can achieve the kind of forgiveness that Christ talked about on the cross. I don't think we, tiny little beings that we are, can somehow have that magnanimity to love and forgive the world for its darkness and its evil. And I felt so troubled and so conflicted because I felt this is so much of the teaching of the Tibetan Buddhist religion. And then it hit me. No, you can't forgive at that level. No, you can't be compassionate like that. The individual self can't be that. But by letting go of yourself, letting go of the individual, the ego-minded, hungry, scared, doubting person, letting go of that just in surrender, moment to moment, here's what happens. Compassion arises, love arises, kindness arises, clarity arises. In other words, you can't do it. You can't do it. It is. It happens. All you can do is surrender. Let go. Let it be. Go for the walk. Sit still. Be quiet and watch this thing fill you with everything you've been trying to do and get. You don't have to do it and you don't have to get it. It's not doable or gettable. But you are the very essence of that at your core. The very sense of your being is a compassionate, loving, beautiful self. And it's only by letting go. If somebody is treating you badly, yes, you're going to be unhappy. Yes, you're going to be angry and uncompassionate. Yes, all of that stuff will happen. Don't get angry at yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think I'm losing it. Don't think I'm a bad person. You're a person. You're just a human being who does all this stuff. But if you can stop a little bit every day and take a breath, open yourself up, what happens is compassion will appear. You won't be responsible for it. You don't have to do it. You've got very little to do with it. All you have to do is sit and be still and let it happen. We beat ourselves up thinking we're responsible for who we are and what we are. We are not responsible in the sense that we were created, one, by our Maker, but two, by everyone around us. We came into the world unformed on some level. Maybe we had certain inclinations and DNA codes and all of that stuff. But we come into this world and we find ourselves in a social milieu, in a cultural status, in a financial space, in a place with siblings, younger, older, parents who love us, don't love us, grandparents who couldn't care or love us completely. You find all of this stuff going on, and you get shaped by all of that. You get formed by all of that, and you get tight into this thing, and you try to make yourself loved, and try to make yourself worthy, and try to make yourself sustainable, and all of these things. You're doing all of this with this tight, rocky, compressed, knotted aspect. And the only way to free yourself of this is to recognize, I am not that. You sit down and you begin this slow, very real, very dynamic process of relax into it, open, ask for help, let go, be quiet, and watch what starts to happen as you dig deeper and deeper and deeper under the fabric of this powerful knot, and you start to see this thing inside you that is absolutely untouched by all of this stuff. That's what you discover. And in discovering that, liberation, freedom, joy, awakening, enlightenment occurs. You have to bring yourself to the table. You have to go for the walk. You have to sit still. You have to get hungry for this. You have to get to a place where you see it has value, and then you begin your part, and it does its part, and this beautiful marriage occurs. If you don't bring yourself to the table, it's not going to bring itself to you. Because it doesn't have to, it's there. You just won't recognize it. You will not realize who you are. You will not realize what you are. And to not realize is like the greatest tragedy imaginable. Because, well, let me correct that. It's only a tragedy for you. They will give you 500 billion more lifetimes to figure it out. So don't worry about it. But there is, within this very, very moment, in this very real, immediate life that you happen to have found yourself in, the key to the kingdom. It's right here, right now, and either you are tying it in the lock or you are not even aware of the door in the lock. The door is in you, the key is in the lock, turn it, open it, step inside, it's yours. Don't do it, wait for the next opportunity. So, I guess the one thing I want to leave you with in this talk is wake up in the morning, open your eyes, and be ready for what arises. Be ready for what comes. It actually is more than you can ever believe if you see it, if you witness it, if you hear it, if you breathe it in. It's more than you can possibly anticipate. And if you're walking around going, oh God, this again, well, you'll get this again. But it's all there every day. Open. Any questions?
I'm alarmed at your description at the beginning of your walk. Like, I didn't think you get to places like that anymore. Like, that you, I mean...
That I'm human.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
like,
sorry.
did the awakening did the awakening do something? Like, did you have more of those before you awakened?
It's so interesting to me that, and I don't mean to turn this on you, but your questions so often are about the idea of awakening, erasing personal suffering.
Yes, erasing that particular personal suffering.
That personal suffering is at the core of every person. Every person. And as big as you get, you discover not only is at the core of you as a individual person, it is the very source of the struggle for the oneness of the universe, which realizes it is completely alone. It is completely alone. Period. And I don't care how big and how great you get, that aloneness is profound and essential. And you cannot escape it. All you can do is go, aha. At which point it registers in a different way. And you have to do it repeatedly, where you just go, okay. And I believe, if you want to call it God, the Creator, the singularity, the unknowable, is aware on some level that there is nothing but it. And it is, whenever there's any tiny little molecular indication of separateness, it registers, I'm alone. I am completely alone in a mystery that makes no sense, that is unsolvable, unrealizable. It just is. And there's no getting out, and it is infinite and eternal, and I am that. What am I? I am. That's all I know. And I'm alone. Now what? It's huge. It is huge in the cosmic sense, and it's huge in the ego-minded sense. It is at the core of our nature to have to face this. And the idea that you can somehow awaken out of it and be free of this is a thing that in a way keeps you locked into the struggle. Because we all want on some level to escape all suffering. And the only escape of suffering, in a way, is going yes to suffering. And you can't go yes to suffering to escape it, because that will not work. You can only go yes to suffering to be one with it. And being one with it puts it in a different perspective. It doesn't necessarily go away. It's just you're not in it, you are it. It's a force of nature. You know, when that lightning strikes, you know, a person on the hillside, you know, that force is really powerful. The force that experiences the explosion of being electrified and killed is experiencing that. There are two forces that are one thing happening. It's really potent. You cannot sit down and go, this is beautiful. It's not like that. It's powerful, and it's part of the human and the worldly experience. One has to not want to get out of it. You can't get out. I don't understand how to describe this because it's beyond my understanding, but it is, we're in it forever. This is infinite and eternal, and we are it. Yes, we get something called sleep, which is a major gift to all of us because that kind of takes us out for a little bit. We get death, which may be similar to sleep, but we are eternal being, whatever that may be. And only when you say yes to that and not look at it as the way out, but the way to accept that you're in it, always, that there is no out as such. The only out is yes. And it's not an out, it's an embrace of it. It's a really big thing to get to. It's not, you can't just go, oh, okay, I accept it. You know, it just doesn't work that way. Rudy called it muscular, a muscle system. It kind of is, but it's beyond that. It's taking yourself on this real existential journey into truth that you are on, and you have found a path to it, but you are looking for a path out when the only path is in. You're not going to find a way. I mean, if you find a way out, tell me. But I think, based on my experience thus far, that the most I have come to is I am all there is, and I don't have a clue, except that at the core of it is something so beyond words. And that's all I know. And I don't know. What do you do with that? I don't know. There are people who give you answers, though. People tell you, you know, I don't know what, they give you all sorts of answers that make you go, I want that. But the thing is, you are that. You're that. You're that as we speak. You're that. It's not going to be different. You know, I mean, when you wake up to this realization that you're hungry for, it will be that you're Shelley, who happens to be all there is. What does that mean? I don't know. How is that even possible? I don't know, but it's true. How are you a doorway to the infinite and the eternal? You are. You're a doorway through which the infinite and eternal enters into manifestation and interacts with manifestation. It couldn't happen without your showing up, or all of us showing up. It needs us to do this. I don't know why, other than, as I say, it's strangely addictive, compelling, heaven, hell, powerful forces that really dominate us. We get caught by it. We come here kind of because we want to. It may be because it's the best game in town. This is kind of amazing. It's really a wonderful distraction from being eternal. Move into time and space. Move into something that gets born and dies. Play with this game. I don't know. You can come up with a million different solutions to it, but the way out is to go, thy will be done. And to go on a walk, all alone, and feeling your aloneness, and to go, okay, okay, for the millionth time, okay, and then have it really truly be okay, is a great gift. As opposed to walking on it, coming home still miserable, fighting with my wife, having a fight with Joshua, going through, who wants to see the grandkids when I'm feeling so miserable, blah, 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 all that crap. That's the choice. One, love, beauty, joy, independence, freedom. Misery, constriction, tension, unhappiness. Pick one. And people do. And often, the familiar, the easy, the non-muscular, the one you don't have to do anything to get at. All you have to do is, you're there. In any given moment, your tensions and miseries will take over. If you want out of that, try going for a walk or sit, or whatever your technique is. Okay, does that make sense? Okay.
I think one of the hallmark of being awakened is that you probably have to, not probably, but the sign of being awakened is that you're never going to feel lonely in this world. But I found that the more you get to know yourself, to understand yourself as who you are, the lonelier you get. So where do you find this balance? Am I wrong? I mean, no. Being awakened, you should brings the happiness and joy,
what
unified with everything else. Where do you find yourself?
The should is a problem. There's no should. I mean, I can't talk about should. If you want to talk about should, well then yes, then this doesn't work the way it should. But the way it works is that your personal loneliness is a reflection of a cosmic loneliness. But what happens, at least what happens for me, when I accept that aloneness, is the rush and the joy of the multiplicity of existences all comes at me, and there's something the opposite of aloneness. But it incorporates aloneness, and aloneness appears to be the doorway to that knowing. But it doesn't obliviate it, it doesn't get rid of it, because ultimately, it is all one knowing. It's one thing, or non-thing. Let's talk about it as a unresolvable issue. It's a paradox. How does it exist? I don't have an answer for that. I do know that people who walk around saying, I found total peace and joy and everything in myself. Great. Great. Why argue with that? That's not the way it has occurred here. And it may be nobody should listen to me because I'm not providing the answer to pure, I found it all, But all I can tell you is breathing is not all in and it's not all out. It's happy, sad, alone, fulfilled. It's a movement. It's a movement. And when you come to the unmovable, then you're dead. And the dead, and maybe even that's not unmovable, even that perhaps is not endless. And you enter into a space that has another kind of inner-outer, light and dark reality to it. Who knows? I don't know the answer to it. But I do know that the ego's hunger for ultimate endless peace and release from suffering is not limited just to the ego. That there is some larger context in which all of this exists, and at the core, at the very center of it, it feels like, to me, there is something that is so simple and accepting that suffering and not suffering are not even an issue. It's not about that. But it is deeply, deeply singular. So, again, I think there are people who will promise you total release and bliss. I would say seek them out if you want, but they're not going to give it to you because it can't be given. All they can do is point in that direction. So you still have to go on this journey, and the journey may give it to you, and it may give you kind of what I'm discovering. I don't know. We'll each find our own thing. You have to climb the mountain. Nobody else can climb the mountain for you. You have to do it, and you will find on your day of climbing the mountain, the sun comes out and it's beautiful, and and it's an easy climb. And for somebody else, the winds come in, and 4 people are killed, and it's a horrible adventure. And it's the same mountain. What do you find? What do you learn? How do you express what you learn? All I can tell you is express your truth. Express it honestly as you experience it, and don't express it the way somebody taught you it should be, because that won't serve you or anybody. And I think a lot of people teach from other people's teaching, belief systems, their journey. Well, Buddha said, or the Dalai Lama said, or Christ said. No! What do you say? What's your experience of it? Because that's much more valid and much more important in the end than somebody else's description. Because your reality is the only reality you're going to really know. And you've got to learn from that reality. Okay?
I think when I actually do my work in life and meditate, I feel less lonely. My loneliness comes when I slack and in a very scary level kind of feel alone. I'm experiencing a very happy kind of part of my life, and I'm really glad. And there's sad things too, and I've kind of grown from them. Am I, because I'm experiencing the happy and not feeling alone when I'm progressing, am I being distracted because I don't feel alone, or?
I can't answer that, but I will tell you that's wonderful. It sounds wonderful. I would rather have that be my default. It's a great, sounds like a very good place to be. But I come through a particular channel that aloneness reverberates in a particular kind of way. And it's a teaching for me. If and when you sit and teach and you share this joy of being alone, it will resonate for people, in a wonderful way. And it does for me. I'm really happy to hear it, and I sense that in you. So, we get what we get. I can't teach from your perspective because I'm not you. And yet you, in being who you are, can share that with people, either sitting in a chair and talking, or just how you live your life. It reverberates, it goes out there. Somebody who's happy, it's an energy, force field that goes out there. And people get it. And they want to be around you, and they want to touch that. Or they may just honor the fact that you look like a really happy guy walking down the street. Wish I could be like that. That's what the feeling would be. And I get there a lot. But I have to say, for me, again, the word default goes back to alone. And that speaks to some people and not to others. So that's why there's so many teachers. Again, find the teacher who resonates for you. And if my aloneness is a scary proposition, forgive me.
No, it's not. I'm just wondering if my kind of happiness, and I know through life I've sheltered myself from harder things, that maybe my not feeling alone is a naivete, but I don't think so.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
The more I get connected, the more I feel things are connected.
Right. But take all the people out of your life. Take everything out of your life, and then tell me how you feel.
I feel very alone.
Yeah. That's my feeling. If you remove everybody from the equation, all the people you grew up with, the people you care about, the people who are really meaningful to you, and it's just you, and that's kind of what I get to. And I think everybody ultimately kind of gets to that. And having a full life is a joy, and we all want that. But we have to be able to reduce it down to its fundamental aloneness, and then see its cosmic aspect, and then see what happens when you go to the core of that, which removes you from the suffering of it. It's a celebration in a way, a celebration of your aloneness that can happen. My walking down the hill, my walking, listening to, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, the celebration of the glory of being, really, that followed the aloneness. That's what came. You know, I had to put on the tape, or whatever it's called, the headphones, and listen. But we can make that choice. And so we can be full and then empty, and full and empty, and fuller than you've ever imagined, and emptier than you've ever imagined. And what do you do when that emptiness occurs? That's your journey, and we're all going to get there. I think. We all get there at some point. There's nobody going with us to wherever we're headed. Period. And you got to bid farewell to people you love beyond imagination. Heavy duty, I think. Jenny?
Well, could you comment on what you mentioned about if you don't get it in this go around, then there will be 100 billion more opportunities.
That's what the, you know, certainly the Buddhists talk about many lifetimes, you know, because people don't grow very much in a lifetime. If anything, a lot of people lose ground. You know, they come into a life and they just don't do well. And there appears to be, I don't know if this is true, but there appears to be some kind of, the word evolution is maybe not quite right, flowering, blooming, that wants to occur. There are a lot of flowers that just don't open, or don't open very much, and just they don't fulfill their possibility. They don't come to, in the spiritual sense, if you want to use the word spiritual, they don't realize who they are. They don't find themselves in this lifetime. They find who other people told them they were. They live an inauthentic life, and they die. And they go, you missed the whole boat. Everything that was here is a possibility of going, who am I? And what is this? To discovering the treasure at the core of your being. To not even know there's a treasure there is like, oh my, it's like you end your life and you go, what was that? And then they give you another shot at it. I suppose the universe keep evolving until suddenly you start to realize there's an amazing journey here to find out who and what you are. That's the real core human journey, I think. It's certainly the journey I have experienced in this lifetime. It has been an unending pursuit of something deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper that flowers and flowers and flowers and is the most beautiful, enriching, amazing reality that I had ever imagined and beyond, because I never imagined it. And I look at people who haven't even begun to look. And I go, well, what's going to be with them? And the only thing that comes back to me as an answer, which comes from other people's teachings, is they'll get another shot at it. Maybe. At some point. I mean, the Buddhists, I don't know who says this exactly, I think it was Buddha, but the chance of another lifetime is like putting a ring this big on the surface of the ocean, and you're a turtle, and your job is to surface and get your head through that ring. What's the likelihood in an ocean of the turtle doing that? That's how likely it is to get a human birth, is what they say. The likelihood of another human birth is very complicated and difficult. So you don't just automatically come back for another lifetime. You get one if you're unbelievably blessed, and you have been unbelievably blessed because you're sitting here. And you're hearing these words, and you're being told there's something you can do. Not to make you guilty and angry and fearful, but to say, oh, I can do this. It's doable. If Bruce can do it, Bruce Rubin from Detroit, Michigan, can end up talking like this, being a voice for something much bigger than anything Bruce ever knew, then Jenny can do it. Anybody. It's just you have to go, this is real, it's to be done. You cannot do it because most people don't do it. But it can be done, and you're here drawn to it because something in you is so powerfully drawn to this stuff. But it can't be just about intellectually embracing and being fascinated by this world. There's something here to do, or to be, more to be than do. But if you let go of the doing, the being will happen. But how does that occur? I know you've been studying this for a long time. It's finally, you just let it be. Let it be, and it's exquisite in what it has to reveal. Now, you know, we who practice this regularly, there's a possibility of unbelievable awareness occurring while you're alive within this bodily minded being. But it's also possible that your final moment on the planet, in this body, will also be an awakening to that truth, And at that moment, because you've lived such a life of seeking, you will go, oh, you'll have found it, and you will be liberated. You'll be free. But all I'm presenting you is an opportunity to do it now. You can do it now. And I don't know if the deathbed moment is the best moment to do it. It's better than not doing it. But you can do it all now. This is it. You're alive for one reason, to find out who and what you are. This is it. This is the unbelievable opportunity to realize and recognize and awaken to yourself, to get enlightened. So you present that over and over and over and over, and you hope and pray somebody will do it. No guarantees here, because there's no path. I can't tell you how to do it. I can just say do it. I can tell you sit, stop, stay, ask for help, open, go for a walk. That's all I can tell you. And then it's up to you. And if you do it, you know if you do it or if you don't do it. You know. I mean, there's nobody else who knows. You know, like if once a month or once every 2 months you decide to do it. I always say this. It's like going to the gym once every month or every 2 months and thinking, I'm going to get healthy today, and then not going again for 2 months. You'll have a heart attack by the time you finally have had 4 days at the gym. It doesn't work like that. It's a commitment to something or a hunger for something. Why do you get hungry for it? I don't know. Some people are born hungry. Some people are born satisfied. Find your path.